And now, the Lowe Post.
Welcome to the Lowe Post podcast live on Thursday afternoon, where I'm very excited to be joined for the first time by the one and only, the coolest man in the business, Marc Spears from the Undefeated. How are you?
When I was in college, I played in the Lowe Post.
There you go. You belong in the Lowe Post. Yeah. How tall are you?
6'6", 6'7", depends on who's measuring.
What was your go-to move?
My buddy Desta used to call it the spear spin.
Ooh.
Yes. Because what I did was if I had somebody on my right side, I would spin it left side to the right. It's quicker than I look. Speaking
of spear spin, have you ever heard of anyone calling Shaq's spin move the Black Tornado? Is that a thing?
That's new to me.
So you know how the Lakers,
the Black Tornado.
I think it's the Black Tornado.
Wish I knew it.
It's the something tornado because on the Lakers, you know, with their like whatever the latest jersey is, every year they like design it around a legendary Laker player. Like they had the Kobe snakeskin one.
Yeah.
This year it was Shaq, and it has all of these like little very corny Shaq touches. Like it has MDE stitched into it for most dominant ever.
Yeah.
And then it has this like tornado cyclone pattern, and I was like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's the Black Tornado or whatever it is." I'm like, I don't think anyone other than Shaq has ever referred to that move as the Black.
Right?
Yeah,
he gave himself 1,000 nicknames,
and he was good at that. His nicknames are good, even if they're all their derivative
from
a
little corny.
The Big whatever.
I like Big Aristotle.
Big Aristotle. I just think Diesel's the best one.
Yeah, no question.
Okay, the reason you were on this podcast is you just released. On our ESPN cover story motif, a wonderful piece with video, a 6 or 7 minute video, and a magazine style piece on Damian Lillard about straddling two worlds, basketball and rap, and about Oakland and about his connection to a particular place in Oakland. Wonderful piece. Dame is to me an endlessly fascinating character. We could start in any number of places, so you just take it. What drew you to this other than obviously the Bay Area connections are probably started it, but what drew you to I want to get to know, you're at the summer barbecue he throws, you're with his parents. What drew you to him?
Well, first got the call from Amina Hussein, from ESPN in July if I'd be interested. I'm like, yeah. And so producer Mike O'Connor called me, and I think the initial thought was to just do something about rap. Now I was like, no, it can't be just about rap. I was like, I don't know another NBA star who does a picnic every year in the neighborhood that he grew up in, the neighborhood park he grew up in. And Dame has been doing it for 7 years now. I remember going to the first one and his mom being really nervous. They used to have this
the very first one.
Very first one 7 years ago after he won Rookie of the Year. They used to have this picnic called the Never Worry Picnic in the same Brookfield neighborhood that they're from, same park. And then, as Dame said in the piece, he's like, it always ended in violence. We'd have a great day and always ended in something bad. So I think his mom was worried when they had the first one that, a number of things could go wrong. You don't want it to end like the Never Worry Picnic, which made you always worry.
Yeah.
You wanted people to be happy. You wanted people to have a good time. And, man, if you're ever out that way when it takes place, it's beautiful. I mean, you got firemen cooking barbecue for people. You got all these kind of rides. You got people getting free haircuts, women getting hair done, kids on the bouncy things, all the kid stuff. They got rock climbing. They even had horse rides the first one.
All right.
Yeah. But the thing that's best about it is he's there, really there. He's present. He's walking around. It's not like you've been to things where so-and-so in the house. 20 minutes later, he's gone. No, Dame's there the whole time. He's walking around. He's shaking hands, kissing babies, seeing old friends, meeting new friends, meeting kids. I remember this little boy coming up to him and saying, "You're not really from here. You're not really from Brookfield." And he's like, "Yeah, that's why I'm doing this. So you could see me, so you could touch me." And that's the coolest thing is, if you didn't know who he was at this picnic that he fully funds, you just think he was just another guy from Brookfield at the picnic. And
he's that kid is in your story, and Dame kind of corrects the kid, "Oh, you don't even know who you're talking to, little man. I am from here."
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's clearly important for him. I mean, he has a whole big program in Portland with local schools and underprivileged children in the Portland area. it's clearly important to him to go back to where he's from and maintain that connection, not just his jersey number, which is actually his jersey letter, as you put.
Yeah.
They say it in Portland, wearing the letter O, for Oakland.
Yeah.
And as you point out, Oregon and Ogden and all the O's in his life, it's kind of funny. It also reminded me of Kyle Lowry this summer. Kyle can be a persnickety sort, but I
like that persnickety.
He gave a very genuine interview about how important it was for him to take the Larry O'Brien Trophy back to where he was from in Philadelphia. And he's talked about, all the Philly guys talk about Philly. They love Philly, and they talk about the importance of helping people that are their friends and family from there. But the passion with which he talked about, I wanted them to see a kid from Philly holding this thing that is the pinnacle of his profession, to just sort of let them know, yes, it's possible. And I got that same vibe from Dame talking about where he's from.
Yeah, well, he wants that trophy.
He does want that trophy.
And he has respected very much Dirk Nowitzki. I asked Dame if he's loyal to a fault. And he said, I'm loyal, but definitely not to a fault. But one thing he did say is he really respected that Dirk played an entire career in Dallas and got a title in 2011. And Dame's like, man, if I could just get one, I'm cool.
So one of my favorite stories that I've ever written at ESPN, and I hate all my stories just as a rule. I think they're all bad. But I went to Portland last fall because I wanted to figure out how do you rebound from New Orleans just humiliating them in the playoffs as the lower seed, and just sort of the symbolism of that series of just you've run into the wall. This is it for this team. And and this was the year after they had lost to the Warriors in the first round, and the year before that they had lost to the Warriors in the second round after Aldridge had left and they made the playoffs. And you just for a lot of teams, you get punched like that. I think they were the 3 seed.
That was embarrassing.
And it's over. The coach is out. Someone gets traded. People start snarking about each other. And the opposite happened in Portland. And I knew that the answer ultimately was going to be Damian Lillard. I knew that. But I wanted to hear people talk about well, why? Why is the answer Damian Lillard? And you talk about how he's there and he's engaged at that picnic all day long. He's one of those guys where you watch him operate and you're forget the loyalty and how cool it is he wants to be like Dirk. It's just he's just tireless. He's always on. He's always engaged. He's always looking how can I help Anthony Simons? How can it's really one of the players there told me preseason somebody was grumbling about, man, I should be playing more. I'm better than that guy. I don't know why Terry's not playing me more. And Dame just went up to him and said, we don't do that here. I know you're frustrated, but that's not how it works here. It's just he changed the way that I conceived of leadership in sports.
Yeah. And I think when you see him on the court, he's not really a trash talker. He just shows up with his briefcase and plays. And he gets that from his dad. His dad is really business-like. If you meet his dad, he don't say a lot of words. In fact, when I interviewed him for this piece on camera, he's like, I don't do this. He let me know afterwards. I did this for you, but I don't do this. And Dame is very much him. Even the stare after the shot of OKC. It's his dad.
That stare is unbelievable.
Yeah. And his dad basically instilled in him, don't fear no man. That even if you're going to Weber State, you could rule the world. And it still is kind of amazing to me that he came from Weber State and walked into the league and succeeded immediately. There wasn't any mental. It's one thing to be talented enough, but he even admitted his first game he played Kobe. He's like, oh wow, that's Kobe Bryant in his first game. But he had in his dad fear no man, and he just played. And so he's very, very businesslike on the court, more so than most stars. And I think that's a reason for the demeanor, the success, and what he told his teammate. He just wants to win. He doesn't care about the individual part. And
I remember asking him, how do you not break apart as a team? And he talked about, and other players had told me this, Dame will take the blame himself when they lose, even if it's not his fault, really. He's the best player. And he gave me this whole thing about how, he grew up, I don't remember how many siblings he has, but he's and cousins are around and stuff. And he's I was taught when we were young, and I really believed it, and I still believe it now. If we're told, clean the house, and I got the kitchen, and you got the living room, and you got the upstairs, and you got the attic, and I do my job, and you do your job, and that guy does his job, but that one person doesn't do his job, it's on all of us. Yeah. Like, we don't blame that guy. We all failed. And I was like, and like, he's just he's not pounding the table. It's like, this is just how it is. Like, it's, and it was really convincing. And I sat with him for a while, and I got to, cause I knew what he was going to say, but I wanted to have the conversation face to face about, do you really want to stay here no matter what? Oh, yeah. Are you ever going to get to a stage where
and I think his mind was shaky.
Really?
I think it was. Had to be.
Interesting.
Especially 2 years ago, sure. I've always questioned whether Portland has enough. Are they making use of Dame and CJ the best way? Obviously, they've had some major injuries. I think Melo certainly helps. Is like a perfect fit for them, and wish he would have went there 2 years ago. But I think getting those guys to help in Portland is probably hard, even though I love the city. But I think CJ and Dame have made them a lot better than they really are.
Well, I was going to ask you about that thing that you just alluded to. You wrote a great piece a couple years ago about what it's like to be a black NBA player in Salt Lake City. Yeah. Right? And just it's.
And I got one coming up soon about Boston.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, you know what? It's funny because I was in the KG Adam Sandler roundtable 2 days ago, and you had someone there on your behalf to ask questions, and KG spoke quite eloquently, as you're going to figure, as you've probably heard by now, about Boston and his perception of Boston as a African American. But I wonder, have you ever thought about writing that story in Portland? Because you hear the same fish out of water stuff about Portland, right?
Yeah. You ever watch W. Kamau Bell show, United Shades of America?
No.
On CNN? Amazing show. So he did an episode on Portland, which was very, very odd to me. I'm like, why is he going to Portland? Portland actually had a very affluent and strong black community. And basically they got, and I'm not using the word to be funny, but like they got blackballed. Banks wouldn't give people loans to get homes. They zoned them out of things, made it really difficult to live there. So they went from having a substantial, black population for Oregon to a lot of people leaving, and now this once thriving black neighborhood is really gentrified, and the people that are still there a lot of them are struggling to pay their property taxes. So I think the state of Oregon, a lot of the racism in Oregon's a beautiful place and a unique place where, I talked to Ahmad Rashad once about when he was playing football at Oregon, and he did not go on the duck caravan to promote the team, which they used to have with their stars, because they said some places were too racist to bring a black athlete to. So Oregon is definitely a beautiful place, great wine, amazing food, as you probably know in that city. But the city itself and the state certainly has had some issues too. Well,
and you mentioned, kind of where are they going, and Portland's whole thing, and Neil Olshey has talked about this many times, is we're never going to get star free agency, or it's never going to happen. Yeah. And so when people tell me I should trade CJ or I should even blow it up and trade Dame or something, I think they're nuts, because we have
to get what, right?
Right. Well, we have Dame, whatever you think of Dame, top 12 player, something like that, and CJ's top 25, 30 player. We're not getting those guys unless we totally bottom out and get lucky in the draft, and that's it. And so we're going to keep on trying to win 45, 50, whatever they got last year was 50, and hope, we're not going to be the best team, but maybe there'll be a year where the standings break right for us. Someone gets injured at the right time, and all of a sudden we're in the finals. And last year became close to becoming that year, and the Warriors, even without KD, were just too good. But now they're 9-13, and by the way, I think they've won 5 of 6 or something. They have stabilized, and their dilemma is always going to be they're too good to tank just with Dame. Dame alone makes you tank proof. You're just not going to bottom out unless he breaks his hand like Steph and you sit him out the whole year.
Yeah.
And Dame and CJ, I think, have kind of hit the ceiling of what they can accomplish as a duo. And Portland took a lot of flack for the Whiteside move, right? Mm-hmm. They let Harkless go, who's helping the Clippers. They let Aminu go, who's kind of helping the Magic. They get this kind of polarizing center.
Yeah.
I have to say I didn't mind it at the time, and I still don't mind it now because, A, Nurkic is hurt, and they needed insurance at that position, and Zach Collins is hurt. It was going to be the other part of that equation. He's hurt. Now you can tell me they can go get.
What do you think about the kid they sent to Miami?
Leonard?
Yeah. I actually thought in the playoffs he was starting to come around.
He's had a couple of big playoff games in that late last season, and then in that Memphis series a few years ago.
Like, who would you prefer to have, him or Whiteside?
That's a good question. I understand why they went for Whiteside. And even now, Leonard is shooting 50% from three. He's only playing like 15 minutes a game. Yeah. I also understood why, as interesting as Aminu and Harkless are, is like, everyone needs combo forwards who defend and kind of shoot threes. They don't really shoot threes. Like, the Blazers got tired of going to the playoffs every year and being like, these guys aren't playable because no one's guarding them and they're not hitting enough threes. And last year against Denver, it became Rodney Hood and Zach Collins at the 3 and the 4 because those guys were doing enough. So I get it, but where they go from here is really interesting to me, particularly now he's slumped a bit in the last couple of weeks. But if Simons is good,
he's a great scorer off the bench.
Then I think you need to start looking at what you can get for CJ. I just think you have to.
Wow.
I think you have to.
Yeah.
I think it's unavoidable.
I fear
looking, not necessarily doing, but not just throwing the phone out the window when teams call.
I think if they move CJ, that would crush Dang.
They are very close.
Crush him. I'd be too scared of him.
It's a good point.
Wanting out if CJ's gone.
That's a good point.
Like, it's like Batman and Robin,
I wonder if that's the thing that would swing it. Like, because he, when I asked him about, you really want to stick it out here, even if you keep running into the wall. He said, good things come to good people, and even if you get swept somewhere along the way, this is what goes through my mind. I'm going to be in my 11th year or something here, and I'm going to stick with it, and we're going to make the finals. And I asked him, I want to be clear, I'm talking about Portland. He says, yeah, in Portland. And I said, well, what if that never happens? What if you don't make the finals? And he said, well, I've treated people the right way. I've put in the work, and because of that, if it doesn't happen, I can live with it.
Yeah.
I'll have enjoyed the ride. It's worth it. And I'm looking him in the eye. I'm like, this dude means it.
Yeah.
He wants to win here, and that's it.
Yeah. And he respects the dollar that Dame Dollar's getting. Dame Dollar respects his dollar that he's getting. Like, that meant a lot to him that they made that commitment.
The Supermax.
Yeah. Like, that made him fall in love with, it's a lot of money, but the fact that they gave it to him, I think that makes him want to stay even more. Like, feels like obligated to stay even more. The city has embraced him.
He's going to be the greatest Blazer ever.
He'll have Clyde should have a statue outside, and so should Bill Walton of the arena. But to your point, yeah, he will be, and I think but the two things that those guys did were they got to the finals. That's the only thing he's missing. But he deserves a statue outside. I see him, as much as he loves Oakland, I see him retiring in Portland.
Two things are interesting to me about that. Number one, the Dirk comparison. Because as cold and calculating as NBA analysis has become, and I realize I'm a part of that as I'm saying that championship is different. It's different than the Heat ones. It's different than any one that I've covered. It resonated more with neutral fans. It resonates more today. And it's weird because it's not as if it was like Dirk and 6 teammates lived through all that failure together and then come out the other side. It's really like Dirk and Jason Terry, and that's kind of like about it. And so it's not like it's a whole group of guys. Because it's the best guy on the franchise that never left. It does resonate more. It does mean more on a visceral, guttural level. That's just true. It means more. It maybe not means more. It feels different than the Raptors winning and then Kawhi leaving. It feels different feels definitely different than the Warriors winning with Durant. Yeah. Maybe the Warriors winning the first one with this homegrown group kind of was similar, but they didn't really live through the adversity. It's just that he never left. It felt different. I think it does mean more, actually.
And I always wonder with Dallas, like I know Marc was chasing Chris Paul and, Dwight Howard during the lockout. And I just wish they would have just left that team alone and not chase the cap space and all that. I think Chris Paul, and I've been wanting to ask him and Dwight about it, and I don't know if they'll tell the truth. Chris probably will. Dwight will probably just smile or not want to talk about it. But I really think that Chris and Dwight basically wink said they were going to Dallas, from what I've heard, and that Dwight backed out of it.
Interesting. Well, the whole Dwight thing was like a 2-year mess. From signing
he ended up going to the Lakers.
Signing the option on the plane to stay in Orlando, and there was Brooklyn thought they were getting him, or it was a crazy. That's interesting. I didn't know that, and haven't heard that.
Word on the street.
But
we hear a lot of stories. That's one story I heard.
What's also interesting about Damon, you really get at this, is athletes with hobbies are sometimes criticized for not working hard enough at being an athlete. Dame has never had that. And maybe it's just because when you hit 2 series winning walk-off shots, you're just immune from everything. Yeah. Or maybe he's just so serious at both, and people have realized, it's possible to be serious at both. Isn't it interesting to you that no one's ever been like, oh, you're not in the gym enough. You're not like you care, but you're like Shaq. You care more about rapping than basketball.
Because he balls every time.
He does.
There's no digression. In my years of being I'm going to go back to my early years of being a beat writer. I covered the Denver Nuggets for 8 years. When I first started covering the Nuggets in 99, we used to get to watch practice.
Amazing. Imagine that.
They haven't let us do that for about 15 years.
All the secrets that happen at practice behind the curtain.
But we'd see fights, we'd see all kind of stuff, and basically we were told, you can watch, but if there's a fight or something out of ordinary happens, you can't report it, which you had to agree to if you wanted to watch. So I would go there. And one thing I realize is these guys get a lot more free time than I think the public realizes. Practice is an hour and a half, 2 hours. A lot of the practices are BS, walk through stuff. They may show up hour, 2 hours before, whatever. But ultimately, if you think about it, they're in the arena on a practice day for like 3 to 5 hours, right? What do you do the rest of the day? And I've talked to NBA players about it. Like, what do you do with all this extra time you have? So it's not like the typical American working 9 to 5, going on a lunch break and coming back and finishing out the day. They show up at 9 and they might be out by 12 or 1. And then what? What do you do?
No, obviously every day is not like that, right? You got game days, travel days. You'll get whatever 30 days a year of your work year count, whatever it is like that.
Yeah.
And he's good. I am not a rap aficionado. I listen to it here and there, but I cannot claim any sort of critical authority. But people say he's good. Lil Wayne is in your story, says he's good. Please tell the story of getting Lil Wayne both on tape and in print.
Well, Lil Wayne said that if he did it full time, he'd be successful. Which I already think
he's kind of successful now.
Dame's successful now, but he's not touring.
Right.
He's not. That's where the real money is in their business, is touring. But it ain't what Dame's getting paid now. But shout out to Stacey Pressman of ESPN, who she set up the Lil Wayne video interview. And I'm always leery, man, and I don't know how many musicians you've interviewed. I'm always leery, a little nervous when it comes to musicians, because it's not like an NBA player. There's not a team PR person. There's typically not their own PR person. It's not like they're playing for the league, a league.
Right.
Where you got people making sure, like, you're representing a team, you're representing the league, you're representing your agency. With musicians, they are lawless. They have no rules, right? And so Stacey was like, all right, we're going to get them. We need you to come at 10 to this recording studio in Burbank, and we'll get them sometime between 10 and 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday night, 3 Saturdays ago. I was like, cool. I was like, he'll show up about 1:30. Then I get a call. Oh, he's going to watch this fight. What was the big fight?
Wilder
fight. He's going to watch the Wilder fight at the studio, so come in like 8:30. Okay. He's not going to watch it at the studio. Come at 10.
As originally planned.
Yeah. So I get there at 10:30. Beautiful studio. Ariana Grande. I said her name wrong. Ariana Grande.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. All these, musicians have, recorded at this place, Bruno Mars, and beautiful place. And it's 10:30, 11:30, 12:30. I met a rapper named Poppy.
Okay.
Poppy is a nice guy. I don't know if he has skills, but about 12:30, about 30 people rolled up to the studio, and I'm laying on the couch with the rest of the crew just waiting in like the living room area. Came in and to listen to Poppy, and it was like really loud and crazy, but I wasn't in the studio. I should have went in there because I had free time.
Yeah.
And he actually offered us fresh baked cookies.
Poppy did.
Poppy did. Nice guy. I told him I wanted him to succeed because he may not seem like a gangster rapper now because he offered us fresh baked cookies.
Do you think he baked the cookies? No.
I don't know. I think his girlfriend brought them.
Okay.
I don't think anything was in the cookies, but this is the music industry, so you have to be careful. In hindsight, I ended up sitting there for 8 hours, so I wish I had one of his fresh baked cookies because I was starving by the time. But around 6 in the morning, I was like, Stacy, it's 6 a.m. We got here at 10:30 p.m. I'm running out of gas, man. And so Lil Wayne has a guy, a rapper that basically is his guy now named Mac Main, who was on one of my favorite rap songs, Always Strapped.
Okay.
And Mac's like, man, don't go, man. You're going to miss out, man. Don't go. I'm like, bro, it's 6 a.m. He's like, I'm telling you, you're going to be mad. He's coming. I'm telling you, he's coming. So I had Stacy in my head, Mac Main in my head. And finally, Mac said, he just left the hotel. It was around 6 a.m. And somebody said, well, how do we know? He's like, did I tell you yet that he left the hotel? And they were like, touche.
Yeah.
He showed up about 6:30 a.m.
8 hours late.
8 hours late. He walked in. He finally walked in at about 6:45. And I don't know if he's a huge basketball fan. He actually told me my TV hits that I did the previous week. But when he walked in, he kind of looked at me like, dang, I didn't know you were doing an interview. I was like, shoot, I wish they would have told him. Maybe he would have came earlier. But when he got there, he was amazing. Amazing interview, engaged. He looked like he was well rested. It didn't look like he came from the club or maybe he, perhaps smoked something, as people think that he may do, which I have no problem with.
Pure speculation.
Yeah. He came in, looked like he slept well and had a nice breakfast and walked in and was ready to go. Gave a really great, engaging interview. We actually have the whole Q&A on Undefeated, and I walked out dead about 7:15 a.m.
There you go. Worth it.
It was worth it in the end, but it was painful.
It was painful. The Blazers play the Lakers on Friday, which will be very interesting because, like I said, they've stabilized. And the Blazers, since LaMarcus left, have a history of kind of sometimes in some seasons taking a while to get going. They had a couple of years in a row where it was like a January, February season-saving hot streak. Their wins, and we'll call it the Melo era. Their wins in the Melo era are Bulls ×2, Thunder at home, Sac at home. So like not a murderer's row. So Lakers will be interesting. And Dame, like you said, I mean, it's every year. It's like 27-7. The last 3 years, every year, 27-7. Just goes out and like adds new wrinkles, like
death, taxes, and Dame.
Adds new wrinkles every year. Like he has all these creative finishes around the rim, lefty getting into people's body, big guys' bodies around the rim and finishing like kind of over, knocking them off and finishing over. I was watching. I don't remember who they were playing. It must have been one of the Bulls games, maybe. They kept setting these double screens for Dame. These like double drags at the top of the arc. And he did this thing twice, and you could tell, I think it was the Bulls, didn't expect it, where he goes around the first screen, and usually you talk about like splitting defenders, like splitting two defenders. He split screens. Like he went around the first screen and then went straight down through the middle of the screens twice and got layups. I'm like, this dude's adding stuff every year. And
shows you something about his basketball IQ too.
There you go. And CJ, after a slow start, is now at 22 a game on 45%, 39% from three. 22 would be his second highest scoring average ever, so he's stabilized.
Where's Melo at?
17, I think.
That's good.
39% from three. You can't argue with it. If you're shooting 39% from three, you're helping your team. Now, again, there will be some defensive challenges that are coming up that are more pressing than the teams that I just mentioned. But let's take what is this? The Northwest Division these teams are in.
Yeah.
Whatever bogus.
Let's get rid of divisions.
They're so bogus. They're so stupid. Oklahoma City, I believe, is part of the Northwest Division. They're in some division.
Yeah. Utah.
We're going to talk about
Minnesota.
Utah too. We're going through the Northwest Division.
Yeah.
I hope none of these teams are hanging division banners anymore. I wonder that's so much to do that. Or like, what's the last team to hang a division? I bet the Wizards did when they won their division for the first time in a million years.
Sacramento still has theirs up.
I'm talking about new ones. Like, if you win it now, you got to be a sad sack team to hang a division banner.
I disagree with the Warriors, and this is on a higher level. Like, I don't understand why they don't put their Western Conference championship banners up.
You think they should?
Yeah.
I think they should. I think conference championship's a big deal.
Yeah.
You won 3 playoff rounds.
The 73-game win season.
That's not up. They don't have a banner for that?
I think they have that, but I think, like, those 2 finals they lost, those were great teams. Like, and obviously the last one was injury ravaged. They should respect what they did and put a banner up for them. I'm not saying it needs a ceremony, but growing up in the Bay, they were so bad when I was a child. Like, you would watch and be like, oh, they're 4 games out of the 8 spot with a month left. They got a chance. Like, winning the championship for Warriors fans in the 80s and 90s was making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Warriors fans became Lakers fans because that was the only way they would see winning. You know? So, to me, I think they forget how bad it was and should respect the success that they had.
Conference championship is a big deal. Division championship, I think unless you're like, it's like a Wizard situation where it's been that long, I think you just got to let that go. Oklahoma City's in that division. You caught up with Chris Paul recently, I think in New Orleans, you said, when the Thunder were playing the Pelicans. And Chris told you, made some news. Chris told you, Daryl Morey told me I wouldn't be traded to the Thunder. And then 2 days later, I got traded to the Thunder. Rockets source clarifies to you that Chris was probably told slim chance he gets traded to the Thunder.
Yeah.
Took that as no chance and maybe incorrectly. That trade, don't you feel like we haven't heard the real story of that trade? The whole real story?
There's a 30 for 30 we need to do on that trade.
I mean, Chris tells you straight up.
Yeah.
Haven't talked to James in a while.
Yeah. No, I could sense things weren't the greatest with those 2 guys. I really want to go watch that last game because I've heard talk about body language and James maybe not running up and down the court or them barking at each other.
On the bench. That story is going around that there was a lot of bench barking.
One thing I heard, which I will say this because I have to preface it, that I have to see to believe, but the one rumor, I got to put exclamation points before I say it, right? I don't know this is fact, but I was told that James ran up to Coach D'Antoni and put his hand over his mic because D'Antoni was Mike, told him, we got to get Chris out of here.
Out of the game?
No.
Out of here.
Out of here.
Wow.
You know, I know there was a game in Chris played against the Warriors where I could tell things weren't that great because he flew home by himself after a Warriors game, like took a red eye. The Rockets were staying the night. I think he wanted to get home and be with his kids. He's a big family guy. But obviously, James has the power, and James wanted, it seemed like James wanted to stay and Chris wanted to go. And Chris didn't have the power to make that decision, so he flew home on his own, which is really, really, I think, an odd thing to do. But that kind of made me see that, okay, all isn't good in H-Town, like in the middle of the season.
And the Rockets are now 13-7. Defensively, they're up to 16th, which means they've probably been top 7 or 8 for the last 12 games or so after a terrible start. And the James Russ fit is endlessly interesting to me. It's going to be interesting to me the entire season. And so, like a couple weeks ago, Denver started this thing of we're just going to trap James. Like, doesn't matter if it's no pick and roll or anything. We're just throwing 2 guys at him when he crosses half court. Then Dallas did it. The Clippers even did it which I know surprised the Rockets because they're like, you got Kawhi and Paul George, you're going to trap this dude?
Yeah.
The Pelicans did it. The Mavs did it. I repeated one team. I apologize. And the Spurs didn't do it the other night when James took 9,000 shots and got 50 points and had the dunk that didn't count. Which, by the way, can we expand the replay rules? The replay rules should have, so there's all the stuff that you can replay, right? Like, you know.
Why couldn't they replay that?
I don't know. They could, but then the time expired. So these explanations are like, I can't even care. Like, I don't.
Like, you know what? These refs should just cheat sometimes.
But this is what I'm about to say. So you can review out of bounds, you can review goaltending, but you can't review this, and you can challenge.
But I'm saying cheat in terms of in the betterment of what happened. We're just going to go look at.
But this is my proposal.
Instead of going by the letter of the law,
the letter of the law should include dumb things. It should just have dumb.
That.
Yeah, dumb or that or something where it's like the dude
asterisk.
Yeah, the dude dunked. It went through the net. We didn't count it. Let's count it. Yeah. Now, I understand that the league is worried about opening up a Pandora's box, which is why the Rockets desire
like every little thing.
The Rockets' desire to protest this is hilarious because if the league is going to say to the Rockets, look, I understand that that's a literal 2 points, like in the most literal sense, but like you start to legislate that, we're going to go back and say, well, that was a bad foul call. That guy's a 90% free throw shooter. That's probably 2 points or whatever. Like they don't open that Pandora's box. There's just got to be a dumb common sense rule. Like the ball went through the net. I could tell in real time the ball went through the net. Yeah. Anyway, I don't even know what the hell is. Oh, the trapping stuff. That's a direct, I don't think anyone's really written this yet. That's a direct result of exchanging CP for Russ. Yeah. Because now you have two non-shooters on the floor, Russ and Capella, unless they're playing Tucker at center. And before you had one. And so with two non-shooters on the floor, you throw two guys at James, the other guys get to play 4-on-3, but two of them aren't going to shoot. And so you're like, well, if Russ isn't going to shoot wide open threes, we have time to scramble back and recover. And Houston is trying to figure out, and I think they're starting to learn how to play around that. And part of how you play around it is you play faster so that they don't even have time to set their defense. They don't have time to trap. And that is also a direct result of trading CP for Russ. So it's interesting to see how all these things interact. But I don't think that trapping stuff is going away. I think other teams are going to try that, if only to throw Harden in their minds. I don't know if Harden will fall for it, if only to throw Harden off of his game. It's been interesting to see him deal with it.
And it'll be interesting to see James in the playoffs, see if he can get over that hump, see if he can get, I mean, the West is the Lakers, the Clippers, Portland. I mean, Utah will rebound. I mean,
we're going to talk about Utah in a second.
West is tough, man.
Well, it's interesting because Denver's 13-5, and you know where Denver ranks in offense right now? 21st.
Why don't I believe in them, Zach?
Probably because they're 21st in offense, and their best player looks disinterested. I love Jokic.
The fact that he walked into camp looking like me bothers me. Like that
bothers the Nuggets who are in New York. I'm going to see them in like 3 hours.
Like you're supposed to be the leader of the franchise. You're supposed to be the role model. You're getting paid. Come ready, bro.
I saw some quotes after their last game, which I watched, and I still can't remember who it was again. Oh, Lakers. I think it was after the Lakers game. No, maybe one after. Anyway.
Wait, I'm going to stop you.
Yeah.
If LeBron, if Dame, if Anthony Davis, if Giannis, if they would have came in fat, they'd have got destroyed.
Well.
Why did this guy not hear it? Is it because he's in Denver? Is it because it's a smaller market?
I think there's benefits to being in Denver. And there's benefits to being like, everyone likes a charming big guy, right? And like he's
but they have
Shaq got hammered for it too. He was so good it didn't matter.
They won though.
He was so good it didn't matter.
Like I got the sense from Denver, like I thought they would have been crushed if they got knocked out the way they got knocked out. I had my ticket to Denver, man. I had my restaurants ready and hotel, everything. I really thought, with all due respect to Dame and CJ, that like for a team that got knocked out the way they did, with the seed that they had, you would think their star would come in looking like Adonis.
It's actually a very interesting point you make because now Denver has not had a lot of success in the postseason for a long time. Even in the George Karl era, they lost in the first round almost every year.
David Thompson was the last one that had real success.
And so they build this young team through the draft, basically. And They don't win any playoff series, and they missed the playoffs by one game the year before, that tiebreaker game in Minnesota, right? And they finally get in. And so, like, I understand why they're like, well, we're not skipping any steps. Like, this is a victory for our organization that we've made the second round. I get it. On the other hand, opportunities come and go fast in the NBA. Like, a year ago, we were like, Boston's getting Anthony Davis. This is a dynasty in the making. Like, and Boston's rebounded fine, obviously. They come and go fast. You're the 2 seed. You got Game 7 at home against a team that's missing Yusuf Nurkic, who was their second best player for a lot of last year. And you can't close that deal. I think you should be a little bit more upset by that than the Nuggets were. That's a bad loss.
Exactly.
That's not a bad loss. It's just like, I understand you're not skipping steps. It's part of the growing process. Like, you should win that game.
And that goes back to coming back like you just came off vacation. I'm not sold on Denver, man. I'm not going to be until they get more fire under their belly and they take it, and their star takes it more serious.
I'll tell you this though, fire in the belly. You know where you really see fire in the belly? Defense.
Yeah,
they're the number 2 defense in the league now. Maybe they're getting a little lucky with open shots and stuff like that because they allow a lot of corner threes and a lot of shots at the rim. But they are flying around, and Jokic doesn't fly. Jokic plods around.
So who do they knock off? Who do you put them ahead of Lakers?
No, not right now. Right now, the Lakers and the Clippers are the class of the West.
Do you put them ahead of Houston?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Marc Spears, because at the beginning of the year, when I was like, okay, who are the real title contenders? Who are the tier A title contenders? To me, it was Milwaukee, Philadelphia, LA. That's 4. And then you would get to this group of Denver, Houston, Utah.
Yeah.
And I called everyone I know in the league. It's like, who do you think is the best team of those? In May, who's the best of those teams? Let's say I called 75 people. That's an exaggeration, but it would have been 25, 25, 25. Maybe actually less Houston than the other 2. And to me, the single most disappointing team in the league right now is the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
Who are 12-10. They are now minus.
Didn't they start pretty good?
Started all right. After years of starting slow, they start slow every year. Their point differential for the year is now -4. After getting destroyed in Toronto, destroyed in Philly.
Last night was like, wow.
Destroyed in Philly, and then they come home, and without Conley.
Getting beat at home.
Without Conley, who's been bad this year. Flat bad. I love Mike Conley, 2-time guest on this podcast, has not been good. Destroyed at home by the Lakers. Something is not right in Utah. And if you look at their metrics, their stats, it jumps off the page. They're taking so many more mid-range shots. They're taking so many more pull-ups off the dribble, which are mostly mid-range shots. Last year, nobody took fewer pull-ups than Utah. Their passes per game are down by like 50.
Wow. Even with Mike Conley?
Assist rate, 56% of their baskets are assisted. That's 26. Last year they were 4th, 65%. Wow. It's just Gobert's
dunk. Do they miss Rubio?
It's interesting because Rubio's numbers have gone down the tubes too since Phoenix's hot start. Something is not right there. They're taking a lot of long pull-up 2s off the dribble, and it comes down to 3 players for me. Conley is shooting 37%, and just doesn't look right. I don't know how often you've seen the Jazz.
Do you think Mike's getting old now?
I'm worried he's getting old because he doesn't look right, and it's not just like he's missing. He's always had weird floaters. The righty floater is his signature shot. The timing doesn't look right. The cadence doesn't look right. Mitchell is shooting 44%. That's all right. 37% from 3. It's okay. He's taking a lot of bad shots. Yeah. A lot of bad shots. A lot of like one dribble.
You think he has too big of a green light?
I don't know what's going. A lot of one dribble pull-ups with like 15 on the shot clock. And Ingles has just missed everything. Ingles is missing everything. Those 3 guys. You know what they give a whiff of to me? They give a whiff of last year's Celtics, where it's like, on paper, it looked awesome.
Yeah, but together.
And something, like the Jazz's path to being the 3rd team behind the LA teams was, we don't have anybody on our team as good as Harden. We don't have anybody on our team probably as good as Jokic if Jokic gets it together. Although Utah people would claim Gobert.
Yeah.
I would disagree, but we'll see. But our synergy, we're going to play these lineups where it's going to have so much shooting. Gobert's going to be diving down the lane. We're going to have the number 1 defense in the league because of him. The sum of our parts is going to be a really good 2-way team because we know we're going to be good at defense. Our downfall the last couple of years has been we can't make open shots to save our life. We've changed that. We got Bogdanovic. Favors is gone. We're going to be a top 10 team on both ends of the floor. We're going to make the sum of our parts is going to be larger than we're going to be more than the sum of our parts because of synergy and chemistry. And the exact opposite has happened. And it's early. It's 22 games. The Jazz have started slow. Like the last 4 years, they're always fighting from under 500. They're over 500 now. That's good. Something just looks off, and I don't know what the fix is if it's not just like, more time, you know?
It's early. I'm not going to throw in the towel yet.
No, I'm not throwing in the towel.
But it's something to be worried about, man.
So when people ask me...
Do you think Donovan... What do you think Donovan is now? Do you see him progressing, standing the same spot, digressing?
Same spot.
I think there's a need for him to become the guy everybody... The superstar, the all-star, the top 20 player. So
very clearly, I overestimated the Jazz because when my answer
you and me both.
My answer to the who's the best of those three teams in May was the Jazz. Yeah. I thought the Jazz had the best two-way potential.
How's
of
Rudy
those
doing?
Teams. Fine. Dunks are down.
Yeah.
Symptomatic of some structural overarching issue in their offense.
You know what? I thought Bogdanovic would be better.
He's balling, man.
I mean, like from the beginning.
Right.
He struggled a little bit from the beginning. But they're still – I still think they could get lightning in a bottle, man. I'm not giving up on them. You like their bench?
Their bench has been a flaming dumpster.
That's the problem. That's a big problem.
Their starting five is plus 16 per 100 possessions. Their starting five is killing it. Their other best lineup, which is Conley, Mitchell, Ingles, Bogdanovic, Gobert, is like net neutral, which is hugely disappointing. And their bench is awful. Exum has been awful. Moutier has been awful. Tony Bradley was awful. Ed Davis is hurt. Jeff Green is Jeff Green.
So I saw Anthony Davis dunk on some dude. I didn't know who it was.
I didn't see the game last night, but it been Niang. Niang got some minutes last night. George Niang.
No.
It
was some dude with an afro.
I gotta look. I don't know who it was.
That was probably the biggest moment of his career so far. You got dunked on by him. I didn't know who it was.
But look,
and I think me and you could win a lot of money just who he played for. I have no. I mean, to me, my point is they got to get that bench better.
Well, before the season, I pitched a trade, which was Dante Exum and Tony Bradley for Marcus Morris. And the Jazz fans, that's so undervaluing Dante Exum. Why would we go get Marcus Morris? We don't need Marcus Morris. How dare you even suggest that? Guess what? Dante Exum's not playing at all. And when he plays, he stinks. Yeah. Tony Bradley's not playing at all. When he plays, he stinks.
It might be time to give up on the Exum.
Marcus Morris is now, look, he's not for everybody, and he's not a Quinn Snyder player. He's a ball stopper. But this whole offense is violating every Quinn Snyder principle anyway.
He gives them a edge that Jay Crowder gave him. That I think they miss.
Well, what they really miss is you saw it last night. That was one of the games I watched last night. They get LeBron, Kawhi, PG. Who are they throwing at that guy? Royce O'Neal. Royce O'Neal didn't start last night. Royce O'Neal's a nice player. Done a nice job for them. His usage rate is 8%, which is almost like if you put me out there, I might use 8% of their possessions just by chucking shots. I don't think that trade is as ridiculous as the Jazz fans thought it was. And I might call the Knicks now. The Knicks are 4-17. I think they should be open for business on December 15th.
Yeah. No, they got to be aggressive because the West ain't waiting for them. It's an arms race, man.
The one thing I'll say about what you just said, I always wonder these when something like this happens and it's hard to pin down what's wrong with this team. I mean, you can pin it down on all the numbers I just said, but why? The Jazz for the last 4 years have been this the little engine that could look at all the passing and the cutting and wow, they got Gobert at 27 and Mitchell at 13. They recovered from losing Hayward. Small market, feel good.
You like Portland better than them now, don't
you? No, for sure not. I thought Portland was at risk of missing the playoffs before the season.
Not potentially better?
No, I think the Jazz. I think the Jazz are potentially good. My point is this: they're this nice, feel good, small market story. Then you go get Bogdanovic. All of a sudden, you got big boy goals now.
Yeah.
And that comes with expectations. You're not a little engine that could anymore. You're trying to go with the big boys. And I just wonder how that hovers over a team that's used to being plucky and we got to the second round. That's great. We'll play Houston in the first round. We played them tough. If we had just made our open threes, still a good season. That's not a good season anymore.
Yeah. And But I think the good news is you could fix a bench. It's not like they need a star. You know what I mean? You could add pieces that aren't going to kill you. Who knows? Maybe, and probably not, but maybe at January or after the trade deadline, there's a guy or two that gets waived. Although the good ones are going to go to LA or, you know what I mean, to the more sexier teams. But there's ways to get your bench better. And if you got to get rid of Exum, if you got to get rid of some of these young guys, they got to improve now, man. Like you said, that window with Conley, I know Donovan's young and Rudy's not an old guy, but the West ain't waiting for him, man.
I think your point on Donovan is spot on, and that I remember telling people when I was having those conversations, I would feel really confident about Utah if Mitchell were like 2 years older. And everyone thought the leap was going to come after Team USA because he was the alpha dog on Team USA. It hasn't happened yet. It's early. Again, it's early. Yeah. But Gobert is what he is. Bogdanovic is what he is. He's a very good player. Conley's declining. Mitchell's got to be a star, like a superstar, for them to hit their ceiling, and he hasn't been yet. But anyway, that's our tour through the Northwest Division. We forgot we didn't get Minnesota. We talked about Denver a little
bit. They're weird.
Let's just leave it there because I gotta give up the studio in 2 minutes. Marc Spears, it's all over ESPN.com. You were just on Outside the Lines. The Damian Lillard story about his career and his ties to Oakland and his rapping is just absolutely fantastic. And nobody, and I've said this to you before privately, nobody gets players to open up like you. Not one person in the business.
That's a big compliment because your work does that. So.
Well, I get them to open up about boring stuff. You get them to open up about like interesting stuff, and that I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get Chris to say what he said, but every Q&A you do, every interview you do, I stop when I see it on my computer. I'm like, all right, I got to stop, or I got to pocket this and leave it because something's going to be in this. So I'm glad we.
Thanks for that respect. That means more than you know. Seriously. Well, thank you.
It's well deserved. Thanks for making a little time to come on this silly podcast, and safe travels back to the West Coast. I'm sure we'll run into you soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, brother.